So I think in my television career, what I found was when I started being my real self, I just started saying, this is who I am. I'm not going to try to put myself into this box. I found a group of people who appreciated me for who I was and what I brought to the table, and we all could succeed together.
Life Reimagined with Stacey Ray.
Before we dive into Sarah's story, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow us so you never miss an episode of Life Reimagined. Shannon Malone-deBenedictis.
Good to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you. And I have to say, I'm honored to talk to the executive producer of one of my favorite shows, Penguin Town.
Yeah.
I love that show.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, the interesting thing is I'm actually headed to South Africa where I will be going there to see the penguins. So I actually was going to tell some of the other women that are going that they should watch it. So you have had quite an interesting trajectory on different paths of your career. And I'm fascinated by that. But what I really love and I want to talk about with you is you being fully unapologetic.
Mm-hmm.
That talks to me in a big way. So I know that you were a super active kid. At one time, did your parents think you had like ADHD or?
Oh, yeah. The famous story is that my parents were older. My dad actually was a World War II vet, and I'm 54, so I was born in 1970. And when I was a little kid, my parents brought me to the doctor and said, we just think she's hyperactive. We think that she just never stops. And the doctor took one look at my parents and said, no, guys, you're just old. Get over it. She's a kid.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But one of the things that my parents did is that they believed in playing sports. They were really big into that. And to keep my energy contained, they put me in every sport imaginable. And so until my teenage years, I was playing a sport every season. And that burned off my energy. And I was also really creative and wrote plays and stories and did all these different things, to burn off, kind of keep my brain going and keep it calm as best as it could.
And sports then so different than sports today with kids.
Oh, completely different. So I'm been born and raised outside the Washington, D.C. area. And in 1976, I was in the first girls soccer league. The very first one in my county. And that tells you how far we've come along. I remember going to the first women's pro soccer game in DC and was with my friends, my childhood friends, and we were crying because we never imagined we would see this. We never imagined there would be a professional sports league. It's changed so dramatically and so wonderfully. And sports is just a fabulous motivator and confidence builder for women. It's so great. And I highly encourage everybody, put your kid in sports. It's a great lesson. Even if you're not good at it, it's just a great life lesson playing in sports.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when I was a kid, I mean, I was never on a sports team, but it was so natural that we were so active all the time. I mean, we were always running. We were always playing kickball or volleyball or basketball, whatever it was just natural. We did it.
Yeah, I think one also lesson that you can learn from sports, and it goes towards life, is learning how to lose, is learning how to fail. And I remember there was a thing that happened like at the end of the college football season last year where I think it was Ohio State and Michigan, and they felt they were being disrespected, and some of the players got angry and a fight ensued and stuff. And I said, wow, someone needs to teach those players how to lose. And someone's like, you never teach players how to lose. I'm like, no, you need to teach them that, because in life, you're going to fail a lot. And the more you learn how to fail to then pick yourself up and go for the next challenge is going to help you in life. And one thing in my career, I've pitched hundreds of ideas to networks, hundreds. Right. If I sold 2 out of 10, I'm a rock star. That's how often I failed in my job, We would fail all the time, but it made you better. It made you kind of learn to do analysis. And so I think with kids and I think with sports and also just in general, it's okay to fail. It's okay to lose. It's how you respond to that is what shows your character.
It's so interesting because I said just a couple of weeks ago to somebody else that I was talking to, George Clooney, I saw a clip of him recently
Mhm.
where he was saying that you learn nothing from success.
Mhm.
Everything you learn in life is from failing.
Mhm.
And I so believe that because, I mean, success is wonderful. Listen, who of us doesn't want that?
Oh, right.
But if you haven't learned how to fail or lose, you don't even know how to appropriately respond to success,
Mhm.
which I think leads to a lot of the bad behaviors and attitudes that we do see in people who are like overnight sensations
Mhm.
because they haven't had to learn how to navigate those waters, right? So, how did you get into being a producer and TV and
It's an interesting story. I never planned on being a documentary filmmaker. I went to college to as an artist, and then was going to graduate school to be in arts management,
what kind of artist were you going to be?
video art and installation art. So
Ah,
incredibly creative. Can't really
yes.
sell it.
Right.
Not smart.
Yeah,
And this is long before social media and all
sure.
that thing. So I was getting a degree in nonprofit arts management and working as a talent agent for marketing professionals. This was in the 90s. And my mother was sick. My mother had early onset Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
and my home, as I mentioned, my home is outside of Washington, DC,
Right.
and my siblings and I all decided to move back home and help take care of her for the final few years of her life.
Wow. That okay, let me just interrupt you and say that in and of itself is a rare occurrence
Mm.
because, with siblings, and I certainly, had my own dealings, but generally there's like the one
Mhm,
sibling who ends up being responsible for
mhm.
the parents.
Yeah.
Kudos to all of you.
Yeah, and we balance out, and one thing I'm very proud of, and I is that my siblings and I were still extremely close, and I know also in these situations, families fracture, and we're still amazingly close. My sister moved home from Seattle, my brother moved home from Philadelphia, and I was in Chicago at the time, and wasn't happy. I couldn't figure out a way to get back home, and so I came home for a visit, and I went drinking with an old high school college buddy of mine, and I mentioned my predicament, and he said, "Well, why don't you come work for me? I've just been made the nighttime supervisor of editors at the Discovery Channel. You always were a good editor. You did that in college." And I said, "I don't know." And then I had a second beer, and I said, "Okay, maybe, we'll see, and stuff."
Yeah, it's
And
like
by the
that.
third beer, I
Yeah,
said, "Look, why don't you send me, if you're serious, fax me." That tells you how old it was.
right.
Fax me an offer on Monday morning. And on Monday morning, I was at my desk and I got a call at my office phone, and he said, "Go look at the fax machine." And here was a job offer, and it was like a 40% pay cut. It was the midnight shift. It was kind of entry level, but I got back home. And so I ended up taking a
Which was
job,
your ultimate goal.
which was my ultimate goal, to help take care of my mom. And that started my career in television as a nighttime editor and cutting shows to clock and doing all these things. And I got to spend the last 3 years of my mother's life with her and help take care of her until she passed away in the early 2003.
How
So
amazing.
yeah, so so I jokingly say I tripped into television, but the good news is that, and documentaries, but the good news is that even from when I was a kid, I loved telling stories. I loved movies, I loved telling stories, and so it ended up becoming a good match. It became something that fulfilled a lot of my kind of childhood dreams. And even if it's nonfiction, even when I'm telling stories about animals or whatever, it's still a story. And so that's how I ended up getting into television.
So, I know that you've done a tremendous amount of animal documentaries. Is
Mhm.
that your favorite subject? Or was it your chosen subject? Or did you just kind of end up there?
I kinda ended up there. I'm a history buff. I'm a history and, actually health is another thing. I love medical documentaries, and when I can do
Ah.
them, I'm thrilled. But what I found was I'm very emotional. I'm a crier. I've always been a crier,
Oh,
and
so you shouldn't be watching Animal Planet. Ha!
But what that meant is that when I started working on animal documentaries is I came to it very much from the perspective of an audience member. As I was watching it and thinking
Ah,
like, what's gonna make the audience react? What's gonna
right,
give me chills? What's gonna make me laugh? What's gonna
right.
make me react to this? And so it started with a few shark shows, and then I was asked to join the Discovery internal team on Planet Earth, which was I pushed back at first. I laugh about it. I was like, no, animals make me cry. I can't do this. And they're like, no, we need you on this to work with the extraordinary Maureen Lemire, who was an executive producer, who just a mentor, an incredible influence on me. And we worked on it together. And I would say I brought the emotional barometer. I'm the one who every time I saw the polar bear get stuck, I'd start crying and I'm like, it's still
Yeah,
working. It's still working. And
right.
that led my path into doing mostly wildlife documentaries.
And so, of all the animals that you have done documentaries on, which one was your favorite animal to study?
Well, I love dogs. And so we did a few shows about dogs and that was just completely I was 100% into it. I
Yeah.
mean, this is how embarrassingly into dogs I am. If I'm walking down the street and I see a dog, I can name you the breed. I mean, that is my annual Valentine's Day thing is not Valentine's Day. It is watching the Westminster Dog Show. That is my February like event. So doing shows about dogs was really fulfilling for me. But what I really like, I have to say, is learning about these animals. And there's animals who I have gone in with one impression, just like most people do,
Yeah.
and I come away with a huge amount of respect for them. A good example is hyenas.
Oh,
You
yes.
know, hyenas have been demonized for centuries. They have been, I think Aristotle wrote about them in a negative light,
Hmm.
and yet they're incredible creatures. They are some of the smartest and toughest creatures on the African savanna. They're matriarchal led. It's if they protect each other, they raise as a group, they're selective, they basically make sure everybody, like, everybody's gotta contribute to the team, you can't be a slacker or part of that, and there was one story I heard that a scientist was trying to put tracking collars on a hyena clan, and it took her she got one on, and then it took her another, what, 2.5 years or something to get the second collar on because the hyenas figured out her modus operandi.
Wow, that is smart.
And so when you learn about these animals and you learn about, wow, there's some things that we just never really thought about before. I love learning. I love discovering this. So it's always kind of a constantly evolving, like, what's my favorite? It's like, what did I just learn about now and I'm really, really into?
Now you're making me want to watch more about the hyenas, for sure.
When you discover something fascinating about an animal, you
Yeah,
just wanna learn about it, and I think a lot of, like you said, there's predators and there's prey out there, and as we are a highly evolved creature,
right,
highly evolved mammal,
right.
we have these perspectives and put things like good, evil,
Yeah,
happy, all these things, and there's some animals who do have that, but that most of it is not driven by a purpose of like, I'm gonna do bad.
yeah,
It is to feed their family, to protect
right.
their family, to do that. And so when we label good, evil on creatures, it's more a reflection on ourselves. A really good example of it is orcas. Orcas are the apex predator of the ocean. They are shockingly intelligent. The good news is they do not find us tasty. They do not care about us. They don't like our boats, but they
Right,
don't care about us.
right.
And one thing that orcas do is similar to humans, is they kill for fun. They do kill for fun. And that is when you realize that these creatures are that intelligent to have that level of acknowledgement and level of kind of process,
Right.
it gives you a huge amount of respect. There's a incredible scientist in New Zealand, Ingrid Visser. She studies orcas and one of the top people for orca protection. And she said orcas eat great whites for breakfast, and she's absolutely right. It's not just in terms of how dominant they are in terms of strength, but it's intelligence and strategy and their intellectual thinking. But again, we wouldn't say that about us. It's something that we do too. And so you can respect the power and recognize it's a wild animal. So I think that a lot of times when we put these impressions on animals, I think it says more about us than it says about the animals.
I think it's a fabulous point. And certainly, I mean, it would tie into our perspectives on a lot of things that it comes from ignorance. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but we just don't know what we don't know, right? And for most people, finding out and digging deeper is really not something they think about.
No.
They just kind of accept the status quo info, and that's that. So when you're producing all of these different documentaries, do you go on site or are you doing it from afar? How does that work?
It's a bit of both. I'm at an age right now where I don't have the knees or the kind of attention span to go sit behind a blind and film for days on end. And
I
there are
see.
people out there who, when I was working on Secrets of the Whales and we had to send a crew up to film belugas in northern Canada, I mean, we had crews, people who were fighting to go up and sleep on an ice floe for 3 weeks. I'm like, "More power to you. You
Really?
go do that. That's great. I love that. You go do this. I'm happier staying back and having my own coffee and sitting on my sofa." So, there are people who live for that, and they're extraordinarily talented, and this is what drives them, and so I collaborate with really great talented camera people, producers, field producers. I'm now more in a role of staying back, kind of looking at things at 10,000
Yeah,
feet and making sure everything's kind of coming in together.
right.
I have had the privilege of being out on quite a few shoots and they're exciting and they can be dangerous and they can be boring. You know, animals don't show up. You know,
Yes.
you
Well,
know,
I found that out on safari. You can sit there. I mean, first of all, we were surrounded by wildlife
mhm.
every second of every day, which was actually the most transformational trip I've ever taken. But, when we were waiting for a crossing, the wildebeest crossing,
Mhm.
we were so blessed. We saw one the very first day.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. And it's like a dream come true.
Mhm.
But then each day when we wanted to see more, you sit there and you watch them. And this is where I think they're so smart.
Mhm.
The wildebeest in particular, they have their leaders and they're checking out. Is it safe? Are there crocs in the
Mhm.
water? And then all of a sudden you see them and you get so excited because they're all trying to go down the slope. And then all of a sudden, the leaders spot danger.
Mhm.
And you see them all start heading back, and then they start going somewhere else on the savannah to see if they can find like another location.
Mhm.
That takes a lot of patience to
Yeah.
sit there and wait and watch because inside you're like, come on, I want to see you do this. But it's amazing to watch their behaviors. I've always been fascinated by animal behavior.
Oh, it's extraordinary when you see it, and
Yeah.
I've had some incredible experiences, like hanging off the side of a boat while orcas have swum underneath me, and, you make eye contact and you're kinda like, "Wow, okay, that's a really intelligent creature. That's
Yeah.
really amazing." I went on a safari in South Africa, and our safari, truck got I wouldn't say held hostage, but a leopard decided to come check us out, and we had to sit and freeze
Oh,
for about an hour. And, and you're looking at it, and the thing is, it's staring at you like a house cat, but at the same
yeah.
time, that house cat can rip
It's
my
like
face off, you
licking its
know?
chops a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was he was trying to capture a warthog, and he kept looking at us, the leopard kept looking at us like, "Are you gonna help me or what?" And you don't make eye contact with leopards, and it was like, "No, we're just
Right.
gonna stare straight ahead. You do what you need to do." So it's
Yeah.
part of that. It's learning and understanding that, and again,
Yeah.
there are scientists and photographers and people who have the patience and have the tolerance to go sit out there. Remember, I played sports as I was a little kid because my brain's always running a million time
Yes. So
million
sitting still is a little bit of a foreign concept, right?
not great for me, no.
Well, listen, I'm a fidgety person,
Mhm.
okay? Has nothing to do with sports. But I will tell you, I'm constantly moving in this chair, and my team tells me all the time, we need to get you a chair that doesn't move. And I'm like, it doesn't matter because I'm
It's not
still
gonna
going to be
matter.
doing this and, all over the place. But, you're talking about the leopard and the warthog.
Mhm.
I had the privilege of seeing something that amazed me, and we saw a leopard who had caught his warthog
Oh,
prey.
mhm.
But what was fascinating was he was up there for the longest time holding it almost like this is my baby. He was not chewing on it or anything. I mean, clearly the warthog was not alive, but you know, it's like for quite a long time he was just up there cuddling it.
Mhm.
And I said, I really need to learn more about that. Was that like oh, I'm so proud of myself. I got this, or was that normal? I don't know, because then a little while later, we spotted that same leopard and he had the warthog down on the ground
Yeah.
and doing his thing.
Yeah,
But
one of the toughest shows that I executive produced, I developed and executive produced was for Netflix called Inside the Mind of a Cat. It's all about everything you wanna know about house cats, this is the show to learn about, and I worked with teams who had worked on shark shows, had worked on
right,
African safari
yeah,
savannah shows, etcetera, and that was one of the toughest shows we've ever had to do because if you think about it, a house cat sleeps 16 hours a day. And
true,
in the wild, it's similar behavior. These animals don't they're not like us.
right, right,
They're not running around and only sleep 8 hours a day. They sleep a lot. And so you've got to find that time when they're being active. So my guess is it was probably very protective of its prey, but also wanted to probably take a nap,
oh
because
yeah, that good point. I wouldn't have even thought of that. Yeah, he's like, wow,
it's
that
like,
wore me out. I
yeah,
need to
let
sleep.
me take a
Yeah,
nap, but nobody better touch my food.
right.
It's I've got 12 more hours of sleeping I've got to get caught up get caught up on. Yeah.
Exactly. So, in the world of documentaries, I'm
Mhm.
curious, is it a more male dominated field, female dominated field, or a pretty good mix of both?
In my opinion, it's a good mix of both.
Okay.
It's, in certain genres, it depends. It really is
Right.
split in terms of certain genres. In things that are more female skewing
Right.
programming, home renovation, etcetera, true crime tends to skew more female. I think you find more female executives than male executives. In wildlife, it's definitely for the field work, it's more male dominated than female
Right.
dominated, but it's changing. And like,
Oh.
for example, the team that I'm working on right now, I'm in the process of producing a 8-part series about the Yellowstone ecosystem. We
Ooh.
are primarily female. It's changing with more opportunities and more chances to go out and show off and show what we can do. But it's been good to see in my career at the networks and in production companies. I've seen a really good balance.
Yeah.
That's not to say that there's advancements don't still need to happen. I mean, there still needs to be a lot more equity, a lot more different points of view. But I've worked with some extraordinary female executives, colleagues, and I'm thankful that I've been given that opportunity to be with these women, these incredible women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw something out there too, because
Sure.
I do, I have friends who are in the, they're actors, and
Hmm.
so they're not doing documentaries. And we are all very well aware of the ageism factor,
Hmm.
especially for women over 40. Does that play into production and documentaries and all of that?
Yeah, not to completely totally age myself. I used to joke that being in television and media is a lot like the movie Logan's Run, is that you're waiting for your crystal to light up and you've expired, right? Because you're going to hit a
Oh,
time
I
where,
remember that
yeah.
movie.
So
Yeah.
remember, they hit 30, boom, they're
Yeah. And
out.
you're like, gone.
I think
Yeah.
that part of that is I think that it deals a lot with assumptions of television and media as always looking for something new. They're
Right.
always thinking that it has to be like the cutting edge. What's the new thing? What's this and that? And with that, many people's thought process is ergo, old people aren't interested in new stuff,
Yeah.
um, which is, in my opinion, really bad stereotyping
Yeah.
because you need to listen to see who really is looking at that. And even I've seen it where one of the most innovative executives I worked with was about 15, 20 years older than everybody else. He was up on the latest stuff, the latest
Yeah.
looks, the latest everything, but he still kind of fell victim to that. And ageism is real in media, in television, and for two reasons. One is that assumptions that people have, and the second is physical appearance. It's
Yes.
women in particular are held to a different standard than men, no matter how much we wanna argue it or say that it's not true. We are, and unless you're willing, and even then, sacrifice yourself on plastic surgery and doing all these things, it gets to a point where it can be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And for many women, I also believe there's fatigue. I think you get to a point where you're like, "I am just sick of
Yeah.
done.
You can say that out loud on this
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
I'm sick of this.
Yeah.
I'm just not willing to put up with it
Right.
anymore. And I think that plays into it as well.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this message.
You might think it's just a getaway. A few days off, a change of pace, a little space to breathe. But the real part? That sneaks up on you. A laugh shared over dinner feels like medicine. A simple moment with a stranger starts to feel like something familiar. And then it hits you. You're not just visiting a place, you're being seen, heard, known. And before you even notice, you're not just taking time for yourself, you're rediscovering parts of you that got quiet. Between clinking glasses and sunrise stories, something shifts. These women who started out as strangers, they feel a lot like sisters now. We didn't just plan a trip. We made space for something real. We said it would be special. We just forgot to mention it's the kind of special that stays with you. So if you're ready for more than just time away, if you're ready to connect, come find your place with us. Start your journey at sisterhoodtravels.com.
Let's dive right back in. Here we go. So, tell me about some of your strategies for combating that, because you are a little bit of a shero to me with the fully unapologetic, because I am totally about that. And that's part of my mission is at a certain age, you don't need to become invisible. Why are you letting people tell you to shrink and disappear and be invisible when you are perfectly wonderful,
Mhm.
just like you are?
Mhm.
But I want to hear you some of your perspectives on this.
Well, I went through quite a few different things during my television career, and one thing I noticed, particularly when I was at the network side, and I worked at 2
Hmm.
separate networks. I worked at the Discovery Channel networks and National Geographic.
Right.
And as I rose through the ranks and went into more corporate boardrooms and
Right.
things, I noticed I would be the only woman over a size 8. I'd be the only woman over a size 10.
Wow.
And I'd go to events, I'd go to conferences, and again, I'd look around the room and there would be nobody,
Right.
nobody who was heavy. And I got to a point in my career where I said, I'm tired of competing with this. It's not who I
Yeah.
am. Not even if I was a size 4, I'm, a little goofy, a little weird. I don't have subtext. So maybe this is not the right environment for me. And I made the leap out into the production company and with my business partner, Brian Armstrong at Red Rock Films. And we grew our company. And one of the things, how we approached it, one of the ways we approached it was we were just ourselves.
Isn't that liberating? Oh my gosh.
It was, this is who I am. I am a pretty goofy, nerdy sports fan slash artist, producer.
It's great when you can give yourself
Yeah,
adjectives that are accurate in your
yeah,
perception and you're not trying to describe yourself as other people would,
right.
right?
And who's also heavy, who happens to be heavy. And part of that fully unapologetic is tossing aside many of those kind of things we've been drilled in our head from the time we were a little kid, like you have to wear black all the time because black is slimming. Don't be too loud, don't be too brash, don't be brassy. I
Yes.
love that word, brassy.
Oh, yeah.
Be quiet, be more like hidden or try to make yourself a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
And I think that those things and the other thing was don't be lazy, is don't,
Oh, well,
yeah, which
the automatic assumption is if you're overweight, you're lazy,
yeah,
you
that's
know.
it.
And I don't want to even use the term fat because that goes to a whole nother level
Yeah.
of, whatever. But yeah, I've heard those stereotypes in so many
Mhm,
places. And it shocks me because I think you're a perfect example.
mhm,
Every sport imaginable,
mhm,
going out on these film locations where most people wouldn't dare to go, you're always raising your bar. There is nothing lazy about you.
mhm.
So why is that even like a word that comes into the conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but some of the things that I realized as I went through my professional career was that because of some of the external and internal biases I faced, I would avoid happy hours, I would avoid networking, I'd avoid these certain types of events because I still had that self-conscious attitude. I would still wrestle and be like, I have nothing to wear. I don't know what to wear. I don't know what to do. I don't, you know. And what I was doing is there's an incredible book a friend introduced me to called Likeable Badass by Alison Frigali.
Oh, I've never heard of that book.
Oh, it's a fabulous book. And one
Okay.
of the things she talks about is that while you can have power, you have to make sure you also have status. And what I recognized that in some of the ways I was holding myself back and not going to happy hours and not going to big events
Right.
because of the insecurities and the just, you know, sometimes overt discrimination I would face,
Sure.
is I was not elevating my status. I was hurting myself because I was holding myself
Oh,
back.
yeah.
I wasn't letting myself be my full potential.
Because that's just one piece of you,
Right.
right?
Right. And so when I realized that, I said, "You know what? This is it. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry anymore. I'm not sorry. Why are we sorry all the time? I'm not sorry for who I am." And the joke I like to say is, you know, I've been heavy all my life. I don't apologize for not being 5'11". I don't apologize for that. Why am I apologizing for this? This is just who I am.
Epiphany.
You know?
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah. Nobody apologizes for not being, you know, tall or not, I'm sorry I'm a brunette or whatever, you know, and
Right.
things. And so embracing that, embracing just who I am. And I want to make clear, I'm not saying that you can get rid of the discrimination or the biases. It's there. It's going to exist.
Right.
But boy, if you can put that energy that you directed toward yourself and take that energy that was all towards like feeding that bias, feeding that I'm sorry, and put it towards something else. You'll just be a lot more happier. It's just you'll be more instead of worrying about can I wear stripes? Can I wear, can
I
I wear this
listen.
this dress that I really want to wear? It's like, yeah, wear whatever you want. I particularly for plus size women, I say this is that I didn't wear my first bikini until I was 44 or something, 46.
Really?
And not only was it just a confidence boost, but also, can we just talk about how practical having a two-piece is?
Yes, I know.
Why am I wrestling with this in the bathroom when I can make my life
Exactly.
so much easier,
Just pull
right?
those pants down,
That's
man.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'm like, that's it. So I think in my television career, what I found was when I started being my real self, I just started saying, this is who I am. I'm not going to try to put myself into this box. I found that I found a group of people who appreciated me for who I was and
Right.
what I brought to the table, and we all could succeed together. And that was a really freeing and infinitely happier recognition, like awakening for
Yeah.
me.
What age were you when you started to have this epiphany?
My early 40s. I mean,
Oh, wow.
I'd like to say I wish that I had this happen in my 20s. I wish this happened in my 30s, but I actually don't because life throws you hurdles.
Oh my gosh,
I
yes.
absolutely throws you hurdles. And I have no regrets for walking away from the career I had and coming home to help take care of my mother. Zero. And that choice has changed everything I did from this point on in my life.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
wondering where would there's a lot of questions and what ifs. Like if you had not done that, where would you be? Maybe curating things in a museum or something and instead of what you're doing.
but instead of what I'm doing, but you know, I think the what if sometimes that holds you back to maybe appreciating what's really in front of you. I've said this before. If someone had said, would you trade your TV career to have your mother back? I'm like, in a heartbeat. That's not even a decision. I would
Right.
take it. I would absolutely bring it to have my mother back.
Yeah.
That was so that decision led to where I am now, and I have zero regrets about it, not because of where it's led me, but because it gave me the time to be with my mother
Yeah.
and the joy and privilege to be with her and take care of her those final few years. And then ultimately my father passed away 3 years later and I was with him too. So again, life throws you roadblocks. It's how you kind of take the path afterwards. Just embrace it. Embrace where the journey is going to bring you.
So, how does your theme of being fully unapologetic,
Mhm.
how are you helping other women with that?
When I wrote about this,
Mhm.
in an essay on LinkedIn and I got a lot of responses. It was very enlightening. And what I found is that so many women feel the need to apologize, and they don't even realize that they're apologizing for things that are beyond their control or they don't
Yeah.
need to. And if I can encourage them to take a stock and just stop for a moment, just
Hmm.
take a beat and think, do you need to say, I'm sorry I didn't respond to that email within 15 minutes? No,
Yeah.
you don't. You don't have to do that. You don't have to apologize for little things, because when you do that, not only is it something that you're feeling like you're not
Yeah.
good enough internally, but you're also, remember I was talking about status? You're
Yes.
not really putting your best power forward. You're not exerting your power. And so in encouraging women to do this, particularly in television and in media and young
Hmm.
professionals, what I hope to say is just to encourage them to use their inner voice, use their big voice. It's okay. It's okay to have a big voice. It's okay to be confident in who you are. And I think, I think I heard you say this in a one of your episodes. It was, men don't do this.
Right. Right.
They don't. And like, okay, if it's okay for them, it's okay for us too. It doesn't diminish our womanhood. It doesn't diminish our position or who we are.
Right.
It just actually, in my opinion, makes us stronger, more confident, and happier, which being happier makes life better for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a t-shirt, which I'm sure you've seen the slogan, use your voice even if it shakes.
Hmm.
And that is a really hard thing to do. I mean, you want to talk about apologizing. I literally, I'll make you laugh. I have apologized to a door frame that I bumped into. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, and not even realizing it's not a person. Like,
Yeah.
okay, it's just so automatic to say
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And you talk about the emails. I can't tell you how many times a day I write, dear so and so, I am so, so sorry it took me so long to get back to you. As if I must do that.
Hmm.
And I've always thought of it, well, I'm just being polite, but maybe there's a lot more to it than just being polite,
Yeah.
right?
You can still be polite without
Right.
being, I'm trying to think of the right word,
Yeah.
passive,
Deferential.
deferential.
Yeah.
And there's, I think that for many women, we've grown up, I jokingly call it the good girl syndrome.
Oh,
Is,
yeah.
we're supposed to sit there, be quiet, raise our hand, not interrupt,
Right.
not be strong, but not be too strong, not do these things, all these things
Yeah.
to be presentable,
Right.
to be that. There's nothing wrong with being assertive. It's okay to be assertive.
And that's what I've always said. There's a huge difference between being assertive and aggressive.
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of being aggressive 99% of the time. Sometimes a situation may require it, but
Hmm.
I will leave that to everyone else's opinions. But assertive, yes, huge.
Hmm.
And most women have been trained, especially, I have a good 10 years on you, but we've been trained not to do that,
Right.
you know. And it goes back to the be small,
Hmm.
invisible, shrink. And you're right, nobody asks men to do that.
Mm-mm. Nobody.
I'm sure you have been in situations, as I have, in business, where if I say something in a certain tone, it is taken as, wow, she's a bitch. But if a man says it,
Hmm.
they're just doing their job.
Hmm.
And they know how to control their team.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we learned from the reactions that we get from even other women. So how did you find the happy medium of being assertive and powerful and using your voice in an industry that's pretty darn selfish?
Well, I think the first thing is to acknowledge you're not going to succeed all the time.
Right.
I fully admit about a month ago, I ran face first into a wall and like was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
It just collapse.
Yeah.
But if I can stop myself from going down the shame spiral, put my arms out and do that, that's what you do. But I think that in an industry that can be very cutthroat, that can be very
Right.
image conscious, one thing I have found is if you know your job, if you know what you
Right.
do and what you're good at, and you're
Right.
able to express that in a way, like we said, as is assertive.
Yeah.
And when you do that, the implicit or explicit, n message you're conveying is, "I will make you successful." Then, when your root message is, "I'm gonna help you be successful," you
Hmm.
get heard, and I've said this to people, to junior people who've worked with me and even, like, to my family and
Yeah.
things. I'm like, "When you get to these situations, it's what's the problem? What is the
Yeah.
problem you're trying to
Yeah.
solve?" And when you identify that and say, "This is how I'm gonna help you solve that problem,"
Right.
you're gonna run into people who are just all about egos and gonna take the credit and do that. And you can decide to fight it, or you can go find some place where that's not gonna be an obstacle. And in media, there are plenty of places that you can go that if you wanna run away from egos and, people failing upwards, is find your own path. Find your own way, and still put all those energies towards a way that will make you successful. For me, it was I got out of a network system. While I enjoyed it, I enjoyed the structure, I enjoyed the comfortability of it, because there is that kinda golden handcuffs of feeling really comfortable,
Sure.
but I never felt comfortable from a personal perspective. I went someplace where I could be my true expressive self, where I could be heard and use my talents better, and succeeded.
Right.
And that's the recommendation I give is there's many paths to success, particularly in TV and media and most industries. Find the path that works best for you.
Yeah. And so this may be a difficult question, but
Mhm.
I'm curious if you actually ever felt that because of your, being plus size, you actually have not gotten jobs.
It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did have an experience when I worked at Discovery Channel where I had an executive it was very close to, and we were just talking about kind of work.
Right.
And they mentioned to me, "I'm really sorry. I see how people treat you as a fat woman, and I'm very sorry." And I talk about that being a little bit of an epiphany for me because
Right.
I thought if I worked hard and I wasn't too brassy and I just
Right.
work, that it would be ignored. And it wasn't. And I've had experiences where I've been in meetings and I've gotten you know, the up and down look.
I don't know where that, you know, I want to say I don't know where that comes from, even though, I get it, all the media and all these things, but I honestly don't know how. Like, I have never, and I've hired a lot of people in my lifetime. I've actually never looked at anyone based on their size. I'm so concerned with their character, their skills.
Mhm,
Are they selling me on what they can do to, as you say, bring something to the table?
mhm. I think that many people, because of the way societal expectations and societal
Yeah,
pressures are,
yeah,
that one of the last free, zones of discrimination and open, like, kind of disparagement is obesity, is weight, because you've been told from the very beginning, it's a personal failing. It's an absolutely personal failing, and I felt that way, again, the majority of my life. This is where being a producer, doing nonfiction, and
right.
loving to learn. There are 3 of us, 3 siblings. I have an older sister, middle brother, and I'm the youngest. My sister and I have always been heavy,
Mm-hmm.
always. Our middle brother, his nickname when he was a kid was Bones because he was so thin.
Ah,
We all ate the same diet. And my brother and I in particular were all the same level of activity. He's the same way. He was a swimmer,
right.
and in terms of, like, being very active. So if you just look at this from a scientific analytical point of view, it's like, "Well, wait a minute. something's not right here. Why is they're doing the same thing and yet one's heavy and one is not? And it's because we're told from a very early age that our bodies are machines. Our bodies all
Yeah.
function the same. And if you are fat, then you are doing something
Yeah,
wrong.
it's your fault.
It's your
Yeah.
fault. But
Yeah.
the good news that's come with weight loss drugs is what they're discovering is no, people's metabolism and the way the bodies work are different. It's not the same for everybody, and some people's
Right.
metabolism is not functioning the same way. I follow this incredible ultramarathoner. She's like a size 16, 18, and
Yeah.
she runs ultra marathons. She runs a half marathon or a marathon every
She must
weekend.
be like so muscular
She is
and
she is
strong.
absolutely
Yeah.
this. She still gets harassment for being plus sized, and you're like, "Guys, look at all the evidence." And some people's solution is, "Well, you just need to eat less." And it's like, "So you think it's okay that someone for the rest of their life should only eat 400 calories a day?"
That would be like saying I have to go, to an appointment and my car needs gas, but I'm not going to fill it up,
Yeah, that's
and
it.
expect it to take you there.
Yeah.
But, you're talking about like the semaglutides and the
Mhm,
medications. Now we have a whole new problem.
mhm.
People are being shamed for taking them. So if you're fat, you're lazy and you're wrong and you're not taking care of yourself. And now if you're trying to do something that is medically available to help you not only feel better, but make your health better, you're wrong for doing that.
You're
I mean,
cheating. Yeah,
yeah, like,
you're not doing it
what
the
do you
right
think
way.
that's all about? Because that really, once upon a time, all we talked about was slut shaming.
Yeah.
Now we've taken fat shaming to a whole new level, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's again, back to it's the one spot that people are still feel
Yeah.
comfortable. They're allowed to be hateful.
Yeah, because it's not against the law to discriminate against weight, right?
Nope. Nope, you can still fire somebody for being fat, and that is it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. People are like, "No, that can't be true." I'm like, "No, it's true. It's absolutely true," and they use many different excuses for it. I think it's because so much thing has been put about this is what you have to be your personal appearance,
Right,
and this is the standard. This is what it is, and that if you are overweight, you are unhealthy, period.
right,
Which that overweight means unhealthy, which
right,
may be contributed about the kind of flawed science behind the BMI
right.
and that and by saying that, "Well, at least I'm not fat," it's an area you can say you can check off and say, "Well, at least I'm better than this person."
Oh, yeah,
It's a thing that you can
yeah,
say, "Well, at least I'm not that." And that is I think that in many people, you have this desire to feel better. You wanna feel better than someone else. And then hopefully, you're a little bit more enlightened or you are kind and you learn the golden rule, and then you take a step back and you go, "Wait a minute, that's not right. I shouldn't be thinking that way.
right.
I shouldn't do that way." And, I laugh because, as I said, I was listening to the episode you did with the 70-year-old fitness influencer, the
Oh,
incredible
Joan, yeah,
yeah, the
she's
incredible
amazing,
woman. And
right?
so,
Yeah.
yesterday I was doing dead squats with 200 pounds or something. I can't remember the weight I was doing, you know? I was doing 30 sit-ups and doing all this because I work out 3 times a week and whatnot, and it's still heavy,
Yeah.
it's still part of what I am. I'm not eating a bucket of chicken every night. I don't do
Yeah.
that. It's not,
Yeah. It's not
I
like
mean,
George Ash is bringing you KFC every night. Yeah.
yeah, don't get me wrong. If
Sure.
I joke that if I ever do get a terminal illness, "Oh, yeah, you're bringing me the bucket of chicken," because at
Oh,
that
yeah.
point, who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have all those fantasies myself, but,
Exactly.
I think one of the things that I think a lot of this comes back to, and I could be wrong, is that sex sells.
Yeah.
Or that's the belief or the data, whatever it is. And so you look at the different occupations that are absolutely based on appearance.
Mhm.
And even outside of being in the media, my favorite example are drug salespeople.
Mhm.
And I was in the medical career for 30 years, and the liaisons and, from this place or that place, every one of them is like a walking runway model.
Oh, yeah.
As if that is going to make me want to buy your medications for my patients because you're gorgeous. Never mind
Mhm.
if the drug works or not, but I think that's the roller coaster right there, is that has a lot to do with it too. So,
I had a funny experience during my time when I was I ran an agency, a talent agency in Chicago when I was in graduate school,
mhm,
and I had some amazing talent reps.
yeah,
And I happened to have working for me at one time, 3 there was 4 women, 2 men, and 3 of the women just by not it was just coincidence. There was no plotting behind it. They all happened to be 5'10", blonde, and
mhm,
very attractive, right?
mhm,
And my boss from the headquarters came in and said, "We laugh about this. We just can't believe that you have these 3 model blondes working for you."
yeah,
And I paused and I said, "Tell me how that's not insulting in any way that I look at it.
right,
Either you're saying that they shouldn't be smart or talented enough to do the job that they do,
right,
or that I would feel intimidated by who they are.
right.
How is that not insulting?" And they were like, "Oh, we're just kidding." I'm like, "No,
Yeah,
that's
no,
super insulting,
yeah,
no matter which way you slice it, guys."
it
And
really is.
it really was. And what was funny was those 3 women, remember I got back to kind of bring it full circle. They all had been either competitive cheerleaders or gymnasts. And because of their background,
They were,
they were competitive and tough and hardworking. They
yeah,
were amazing, absolutely amazing, and they were brilliant at their job.
right,
Not because maybe that did have something to do with it, but the fact was more of that they had this background of teamwork, collaboration, hard work, diligence, intelligence, all of that. There is this perception about sex sells, but, I do think that there's been progress, because if you had
yes,
told me 10 years ago that someone like Queen Latifah was gonna be the star of an action drama on
right,
CBS, right?
right, right.
Yeah, I mean, no.
You would have said, "No way."
No
They would never
way.
hire that person.
No
Yeah,
way. Ashley Graham, the model, she's got,
yeah.
she's got clothing lines, she's got different merchandise lines, and I would challenge most men to say you don't find her attractive. We've come a long way.
Do you remember the first plus-size model who made it big, Emmy?
Oh, yeah, Emmy. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
She was absolutely stunningly
Stunning.
gorgeous, and even for women who were not first of all, the plus size to me looked normal. Like, I mean, she just looked like a beautiful woman. Today, you see more and more real people being used as models. And I want to see people who look like me.
Which, again,
Right,
circling back, it's also good business.
right,
That's really good business, because
right.
why would you ignore a huge audience base who's going to bring you more profitability? So it's acceptance and seeing that and recognizing, if you want to, you should do it because, again, the golden rule, and you should recognize and accept everybody. But if you do want to get into this hardcore capitalistic kind of life, it's also just really smart business. It's just really smart because people want to see people who look like them and respond to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next on the horizon for Shannon Malone-deBenedictis? I love your
Um,
name.
oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't get much more Catholic than that. It's
I
pretty,
know.
it's
I
pretty,
know.
no, so I'm still producing. I'm working right now, as I said, on an 8-part series about the Yellowstone ecosystem, and also an independent documentary about civil rights hero Barbara Johns, who was a 16-year-old who led a student walkout in Farmville, Virginia.
Oh,
Um,
that's my thing right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been working on that. I also do public speaking. I've been talking about fully unapologetic at different conferences, and I also offer courses through my website at Padlin Creative on self-empowerment, recognizing how you're powerful yourself and how to sell yourself, and also if you have a show idea or a documentary idea, how you can flesh that out and make it reality.
That's fabulous. Now,
Yeah.
let me ask you something. Is there a particular age demographic that you target, or are your coaching and wonderful webinars, are those available and really applicable to all women, regardless of your age?
I think they're applicable to all. I think that, one thing about getting into being unapologetic about your life is to recognizing the things that you're really, really good at,
Right.
and not just your skills, but what you're talented at. And one of the courses I offer is about finding that and discovering that and not
Right.
feeling necessarily pigeonholed. I mean, you've spoken about it, I've spoken about it. I don't think our lives are meant to be in one silo of this is only thing we're going to do. You know, I'm on my third career iteration and I'm loving it. It's fantastic.
That is so. This makes me laugh because sometimes I've heard myself saying, yeah, this is my third act. And I'm like, who am I kidding? This is like my 85th act. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I never stop. I'm 65 years old, and every day I'm still thinking, ooh, what else can I do? What
Yeah.
else can I do?
Yeah.
I love being alive. I mean, that's part of it, you
Mhm.
know? And, there's only a few things that are truly off limits to me, like, yeah, the military's not going to take me at age 65. Quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be in the military at this point in time. But the world really is open to me. I'm the one who has to decide, oh, do I want to do that? Do I want to try that?
Mhm.
And, one of the things I do on all my trips is I always make sure that I do something either that scares me or that I've never tried before.
Oh, love it.
It's a rule that I
Love
have.
it.
So I'm actually always thinking ahead on that. Okay, what's it going to be on this trip? What's it going to be on that trip?
And even if you fail, it's okay. It's still a victory. It's still a victory.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, exactly. You know what my favorite song is, and I've never talked about this on a podcast. Honestly, my favorite song mantra is "That's Life" by Frank
Oh,
Sinatra.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is my absolute favorite song. I've been up and down and over and out, but I know one thing,
Mhm.
and I'm just going to keep getting up and I will rise. And I think that's what I really like about you is that you are giving us such inspiration to realize, hey, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. You can do whatever.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate that. And I am really going to focus on the being unapologetic.
Yeah.
That's a huge one for me.
And that's not saying don't say sorry when it's necessary, just
No, yeah, yeah, of
you know?
course. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes, believe me. And of course, the
The
one thing
door the door
yeah.
jam doesn't need to be apologized to. It's okay.
I know. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then I look at it and go, Scott Stace, you're such an idiot. Like, that's not even a person. But,
Yeah.
but it always makes me laugh. So if you can laugh at yourself, I guess life is good. But
Mhm.
yeah. Any words of wisdom as we end our conversation for women over 50 on how they can get past the brainwashing, I'm going to call it, that we've all been taught all of our lives, how they can be totally unapologetic.
One of my favorite life mottos is from the 1980s movie Silverado. Linda Hunt's character said, "Life is what you make of it. If it doesn't fit, make alterations."
Oh,
And
I
I
love that.
and I fully believe in that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that. That's a perfect way to end our conversation. I really, really have loved talking to you. So thank you so much. I can't wait to see your new documentaries
Okay.
too. I did see a list. You have done so many animal projects, and every one of them is of interest to me, to be
Oh, good.
honest. Yeah,
Oh, good. Well, I'm
yeah.
glad,
So
and thank
I'm.
you for the shout out to Penguin Town. It was a lot of fun.
Oh my god, and you had a perfect narrator with Patton
Yeah, he was
Oswalt.
good.
I mean, he's like something about his voice and all
Mhm.
of that. It's just like he really made me feel like we know who these penguins
Mhm.
are, their
Yeah,
personalities, and
they're
yeah.
great. Well,
So
thank you. This has been a blast. I really
this has
appreciate it.
been so fun. Thank you. If you liked this show, please be sure to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, give us a review, because it really helps grow our podcast.